Hi everyone, Shabbat Shalom Mevorach. Very excited, very honored to be the first one up in this new series of Divrei Torah on the Parasha. My understanding is that as part of this new initiative, we're going to each member of the Chabura is going to take upon themselves to say the Divrei Torah for the week and share it with the rest of us, so that we have something to take with us into Shabbat and to the Beit Knesset while we're reading the Parasha, and overall something to think about during the weekend, during the week. So this week's being Parashat Noach, I wanted to delve a little bit into when are we first introduced to Noach. Everything I'm pretty much going to say comes directly from our Reforman's new book on Bereshit. If you don't have a copy, I really recommend you get a hold of one. So Noach, when are we introduced to him? We're introduced to him by his father, who tells us as follows. He says, ויקרא את שמו נוח לאמור, זה ינחמנו, ממעשינו מעצבון ידינו, מן האדמה אשר ירא השם. So he called his name Noach, because he will comfort us from our work and from our doings and from the sadness of our hands, from the ground, from the soil that Hashem cursed. So what is he really referring to? What is he talking about cursed here? So I think it's quite obvious that we could say that this is probably alluding back to how the ground was cursed back at the time of Adam and Chava, when they were kicked out of Gan Eden. Why? What happened there? If we delve into that for a second, we lost closeness to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in Gan Eden, because when we got kicked out, we were no longer at that spiritual level, but we were also made to work the land differently to how it would have been back in Gan Eden. In Bereshit, it also tells us that it was actually, we were created from the earth and we were created by Hashem himself, right? So the dust of the earth was what we were created from. So it seems like we were made distant from the two things that really fundamentally gave us life, HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself, and then the ground of the earth. So this kalala, this curse that we got from HaKadosh Baruch Hu was probably the strongest kalala we've ever received as a people, and not just the Jews. I mean the whole world. The distance that we have now from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the fact that we have to work the land and it doesn't work for us essentially, is changed humanity forever. But what happened with Noach? She tells us that his father, in a vision, was able to see. I'll read you the words. So now Rashi tells us very nicely that it wasn't until Noach that they had a plow machine in order to work the soil of the earth. Now, why was this such an innovation? Because, as we know, it was very difficult to get any produce out of the land. And one of the only ways, and one of the new innovations that came about at the time of Noach, which was seemingly made by Noach himself, was this plow machine, this new innovation that was going to help them toil the land and get the goods out of it. So, on face value, we look at this and we think, okay, very nice. Chazaku Baruch to Noach. He came in, did some innovation. But if we look, only 6 Pesukim later, we have God's declaration of how he's actually going to destroy the world. And if you listen carefully to the words, they're extremely similar. 4 words come up that are identical, essentially, in meaning to the words that we actually saw in the first pasuk that I just read to you. So listen closely here. Vaynachem Hashem ki asa et ha'adam ba'aretz vaytyatzeb Eli bo vayom Hashem imchet ha'adam asher barati me'al penei ha'adama. So we've got the words Vaynachem, Asa, Vaytyatzeb, and ha'adama. And in the first pasuk, we have the words Yanachamenu, which is the same as Nachem. Asa, we read in the second pasuk. Then we have Mima'asenu. Umiyitzbon is like Vaytyatzeb, so sort of sadness from the work. And then ha'adama is brought up in both pasukim as well. So we see a direct correlation between how Noach was actually called to the beginning of how God started thinking about destroying the world, when he made a decision that he needs to destroy the world. So that's a big statement, because it basically essentially means that through the birth of Noach, God understood that something was going wrong and something is going to have to be fixed, and essentially the Mabul has to come about and wipe out the whole generation and start afresh. I would just want to point out as well that at the end of the parasha, we have the story of Bavel. What happened here? I think this correlates quite nicely. So we have here, and I'll read out from the pasuk. So what happened is that the people were able to figure out how they were able to figure out another innovation. They were able to figure out how to create brick, because up until then they would use stones, natural stones, to build houses and whatnot. So this is the first time where they were actually starting to build their own buildings. And what were they going to do? What was one of the first buildings they were going to do? Vayomeru, hava nivlenanu ir, we should build ourselves a city, umigdal verasho b'shamayim, and a tower in the city with its head in the sky. V'na'aseh lanu shem, and we will make for ourselves a name, pen hafutza pnei koratz, in case we kind of get dispersed and we get forgotten in the land. So we're going to make this so that we are remembered forever. And then we know in this story as well what happens there. Hashem comes. He says, no, this is going to go south. He comes. He gives everyone a different language, and now they're all confused. They can't really talk to one another, and so they can't head off this project that they were going to accomplish. So what do we see from these things? Why is it that Hashem sort of seems to come in these times of when we are innovating and improving our life, and to say no, this is going to bring about problems. We need to start over. So if we think about originally, what was the curse all about? Why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu bring the curse of the soil? What happened is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu understood that now that we're in this new world where we're sort of kind of distant from Him, we need something to always remind us where everything really comes from. So by working the land really hard, you're going to toil and you're going to suffer, and then your neshama, essentially during that agony, because they were asking for comfort, right? They were suffering. So why do they look? They're looking for the comfort though, but in the innovation of themselves. They think that their abilities to create something new and then make themselves, for example, in the case of Babel, a name for themselves, was the wrong way to look at it. Where we had to look at it was that the reason this curse came about, the reason we are the way we are today, is because HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to bring us to find Him in everything that we do, right? And by working the land, we're going to look up to Him. We're going to say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, everything comes from You. Please help us. Instead, what did the generation of Noach say? We've got the plow now. This is what's going to comfort us. We don't need comfort from anywhere else. And this was a big, big mistake of that generation, which essentially started the bringing about of the destruction of that entire generation. I think just to end off here, and this is my little end to my little add-on to this week, is that what message we can take here is that especially today more than ever, it's so easy or so straightforward at times to innovate a little bit and to do something incredible yourself, build like a new program, open a website, create some value for yourself. Through Instagram, whatever it may be, right? We have to remember, essentially, at the end of the day, that even though we are the ones innovating, we are the ones taking upon, the burden of trying to figure something else out, let's say, essentially, we have to remember at the end of the day that it all comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that it's always from Him. And our ability to do these things should not take away from any of we should never think that, chas v'chalila, that is because of ourselves, because of our own doings, that we have everything we have today. And when HaKadosh Baruch Hu, put a stop to that in the times of Mabul and times of Bavel, what we don't want Him to do is to put anything like that on us. So we have to be very, humble in the sense that we just understand that even though we are putting in all the effort, we're doing the hard work, we're staying at home and working, really, apan nasa, everything that we really have is from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that's where we should turn to for comfort. With that message, I just want to leave you. Thank you for listening. May you have a very good Shabbat, and looking forward to next week's shiur.